The ANC's President Cyril Ramaphosa has issued yet another stern warning to the party to either shape up or ship out. He says if the governing party does not renew itself, it will simply perish. Ramaphosa was delivering the opening remarks at the ANC-NEC lekgotla in Eslam Park Conference Centre at Gauteng earlier today. The gathering is the last leg of a series of meetings of the party's highest decision-making body as it convened to chart the new path forward. The party also elected the National Working Committee, which will be responsible for the day-to-day running of the organization. Ramaphosa noting the absence of his predecessors, former President Thabo Mbeki and Kgalema Motlanthe, who have been critical about him. Former ANC Deputy President David Mabuza and outgoing South Africa Deputy President also did not attend the party's NEC lekgotla due to prior commitments. Ramaphosa calls for action and urgency in dealing with Eskom's crisis as well. We speak now to political analyst Bheki Mngomezulu. A very good evening to you, Professor, and thank you so much for speaking to us. Perhaps the absence of his predecessors that the President noted, what is the significance of this? And it's ironic you lamenting the lack of the past if you're saying you want to chart a new forward.
Thank you very much for having me, and good evening to your viewers. To address your question, yes, of course, from someone who's looking at this issue from a distance, you may then come to a conclusion that indeed this is a cause for concern. But then, of course, there will be reasons as to why those leaders were not there. Like, for example, we've just mentioned in your introductory remarks that the Deputy President had a prior commitment. So it might well be the case that the other leaders too had other commitments, because it doesn't mean that whenever there is a lekgotla of the ANC, everything has to come to a standstill. There are still a lot of other things that need to be done. So until we know what the reasons are, we shouldn't be concerned. But for those who know that maybe there were no other reasons and they just decided not to come, then of course they'll have a reason to be worried.
But I guess what I was just trying to gain from you and from his thinking, he is saying that there needs to be renewal. And yes, there are foundations within a functioning political party which are very important. And that is also from the legacy, the body of work of your predecessors. But why President Cyril Ramaphosa would see their presence there as an important step in reinforcing this renewal that he's calling for?
You know what, Sepeto, let us be honest. When is this renewal going to start? When the president assumed office in 2018, you recall that he talked about the renewal process having that one on the agenda. And it's 5 years down the line, we have not seen that process starting or taking off the ground. Some would say it's because there was a resentment from some members of his party. But then the question will be, what has the president done? In fact, something that we can point at and say, this is what he's done. Because he can't work alone. If he was aware that for him to be able to renew the organization, he would not have to be a soloist, but would need the support of all the members. Did he consult them before talking about this renewal process? In other words, the point I'm making here is, if, for example, he's concerned about the fact that some of the former leaders of the party were not there, did he consult them upfront to check if they were going to be available? And did they provide him reasons as to why they would be absent? Because if he raises this issue at the meeting or in the public forum, then the impression created is that there is a fallout between him and those leaders, which might not necessarily be the case. So I think that as part of the renewal process, one thing that the president needs to do is to go back to the documents of the ANC and see how the ANC has been operating thus far. One issue I know of, for instance, is that the ANC believes in collective responsibility. So which means that there is no single individual who should be held accountable when the party is not doing well. Similarly, if the party performs well, no single person should take the credit because it's part of the collective. So I think that those are the issues that should guide the president as he embarks on this renewal agenda. But I'm just waiting to see when the process will start, because we've been hearing about the renewal, but we have not seen it starting off the ground. So that is what most people are interested in, myself included.
And I must say, even for myself personally, I find sometimes even difficult to keep raising the subject with so many different people and wondering in how many different ways we can talk about the same thing, because this has been something that we've been discussing even from December since the elective Congress, the organizational structure of the ANC, how it can renew itself so that it's not a political liability in the current democratic dispensation. So is he preaching to the converted, and in what different ways can he preach the same message which you say it seems he's delaying and implementing?
Your question is very critical, so no, the president should not be making that statement anymore. He should be working with the collective to deliver on the promises he made in 2018. Because the more he talks about it, the more people become aware that in fact he's making more promises and is not delivering on those. And that is not what we want. That's not what we want from the leader of the organization, and that's not what we want from the leader of the country. So I think that the president is making the correct noises, but he has repeated those noises in a sustained manner to the extent that they mean nothing. So what people now need is to see that renewal process taking off the ground. And one of the things that need to happen, of course, as I say, is to go back to the documents of the ANC, because there is no way you can operate outside of the guidelines of the ANC, outside of the constitution of the ANC, and all those related documents. So to talk about one thing yesterday, today, tomorrow, next week, it wouldn't help you. If anything, it will do the direct opposite, because people will say, oh, we have heard that before. We have heard that before. So it means that people are going to lose trust in you. So it's time to deliver now, more especially now that the elective conference is over, the NEC has been elected, the NWC has been elected. There are no reasons now why there should be a delay with this renewal process.
I mean, I was just listening to the EFF leader, Julius Malema, speaking about the national shutdown that they are planning for March, saying part of it is also going to call for the resignation of President Cyril Ramaphosa. I wonder, though, how much of that will bring about not only the organizational renewal, but what President Cyril Ramaphosa is calling for, that is a mobilization of social partners regarding investment, job creation, fighting crime, corruption, building a better South Africa. What I'm saying is is it really dependent on who is at the helm, or how we as a country work together?
Yes, so the point you started off with, that of the EFF, is very interesting. Just the other day, the leader of the official opposition, John Steenhuisen, organized a march to Lutuli House complaining about the same issues. And now the third largest party now, the EFF, is organizing another march against the president of the party, and then of course saying that they want to talk about these outages, electricity outages. Like, I'm counting time now, in 10 minutes time I'll be on a blackout. So basically these are genuine issues. But the question for me is it really fair for any of the 14 political parties that are in parliament to go to the streets and march about issues they should have legislated on? Because they are part of the problem, in my view. As much as the ANC is the governing party, but the ANC is not governing alone. So which means that if the ANC is not doing well, they are all not doing well, because as opposition parties, they are supposed to hold the executive accountable, and they are supposed to debate these matters in government, not outside of government. You and I, so have all the rights to go to the street and toy, because we are not in parliament. But as for members of parliament to then stage a coup against one of their own, it's like we are fighting yourself, which is the same point I made about the DA. When the DA went to Lutuli House, I said they were raising genuine issues, but they were raising them in the wrong place. So the same applies to the EFF. It is organizing a march. That march could better be organized by you and I as members of the public against our government that is not assisting us in terms of dealing with the electricity crisis, not members of parliament doing against another leader, although the president is not a member of parliament constitutionally, but of course he is part of government, and therefore they should be debating those issues in government, not outside of government.
Thank you so much for your time, political analyst Professor Bheki Mngomezulu. Just to give you at least a little time so that you can get settled in before lights out, as you say. Thank you very much for your time and your sides, Professor Bheki Mngomezulu.